Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery, where we learn to make a good mystery great. And today I want to talk about two craft elements that will help engage your readers in your mystery. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon for their support. It means so much. And if you enjoy these videos and you're learning from them, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Okay, so how your story looks on the page affects your readers' engagement in your story and helps them read your story. And it's the kind of thing that readers may not be consciously aware of, but if you practice these two things and putting together your story, your readers will appreciate it, because you want to plunge your readers into the story and keep them there. So authors hear a lot about making, appropriate and professional cover design and blurbs that work to sell your book. And but one of the elements that is often overlooked, actually I don't hear people talk about this very much, one of the elements of book engagement is how easy that book is to read. Book formatters are well aware that design on the page influences a reader's response to a book. And of course, if you are selling ebooks, your readers get to choose how it appears on the screen on their e-reader. But there's still things you can do to get your reader eye flowing down the page and continuing to read your story without getting lost or putting down the book. Even things like advice about Amazon's Look Inside feature, and it focuses on how the first few pages of your book hook the reader. And all of that information is really great. Yes, you want to sell as many books as possible, and yes, you want to hook your reader into buying the book. But once they buy the book, you want them to continue reading and enjoying their read. So genre writers like mystery lovers like a great puzzle and an easy read, and improving your craft will help your readers enjoy your book. It'll give them just what they want. So there's two main ways that to deliver craft that keeps readers satisfied, and that is readability and paragraph length. So you can see why readers probably won't notice this too much, but it does have a powerful influence on how they continue reading down the page of your story. So let's talk a little bit first about readability. It's a term for how easy your text is to read, and it deals with lots of things. It deals with complexity and syntax and spelling and grammar and other technical issues, and it has nothing to do with plot or character development. It measures the ease of reading. And although your novel may deal with complex subject matter and concepts, you want to present them in a manner that is accessible to your reader. Long involved sentences can slow down reading, or long words or unfamiliar vocabulary that sends readers to the dictionary also impacts readability. I don't know if you remember when you're like 11 or 12 and you're trying to read adult books and you kept going to the dictionary to look up words. You don't want your readers to do that. So although there are many, I did research this yesterday, and I was surprised at how many different varieties of readability measurements there are, but there are two that are the most common. One is called the Flesch Reading Ease Score, and it grades text on a scale from 0 to 100, and it looks at the average length of sentences and the average number of syllables per word. So for genre books like mysteries, a score between 70 and 90 works well. So let's just look at how the scores go. Score from 90 to 100 is very easy to read. It's easily understood at an average 11-year-old level. This makes it pretty easy, right? And then a score between 80 and 90 is easy to read, and a score between 70 and 80 is fairly easy to read, and a score between 60 and 70 is easily understood at the 13 to 15-year-old level of students. So overall, as you write, your readability is going to vary between sentences, but we want to have a sense of the overall readability of your story. I was just reading a paper yesterday. Someone in Australia actually had done their PhD thesis on readability of popular authors. And one of the things he noticed was that if the readability score is fairly easy for most of the book, there can be an important time in the book when the readability gets a little bit harder, and then as the book heads towards the climax, it once again goes down to at least fairly easy to read text. So you certainly can have variety of readability in your story, but overall you want your story to be fairly readable. So popular novels, like mysteries, do best with an overall average 7th grade level, and that comes from another readability measurement, which is called the Flesch-Kincaid Readability Scoring, and it took the original Flesch scores from 0 to 100 and translated them into school grade levels. So it gives, at least for Americans, it gives you an easy to understand level of where your story is on the readability scale. So once again, with mysteries, you want to be around the 7th grade level. And I know for new writers, this is like, whoa, but from the research that I did, it's pretty consistent that popular novels, including The Great Gatsby, are all at this fairly easy to read level. So don't be intimidated by this. Really what it is it's asking you to write with clarity. And you certainly can't argue with that. You want your readers to understand what you say so they can relate to your story. And that's really the point of evaluating the readability of your manuscript. You want it to be clear. There's a couple of tools that you can use. There's a free tool that you can download called the Hemingway Editor, which gives you a Flesch-Kincaid Score, and it does that for actually every sentence. And you put your text in, and it evaluates all of the sentences. And then both Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid will examine your text for readability and give you a Flesch score. So just remember, that's 0 to 100, and you want to be probably somewhere in the 70 to 90 range. Okay. The readability tools give you an overall sense of your manuscript, and remember, dialogue will fall outside the norm with characters who talk and run on sentences or bombast at one end of the spectrum, and the others who talk in very short sentences, or they're in a crisis moment and they're just one word sentences. So just be aware that those places in your story are going to alter the readability score for that particular part of the book. What you really want is just an overall sense of where the readability score is for your overall manuscript. And on the other hand, you don't want to use readability. You don't want to be ruled by readability scores. So dialogue is a perfect example of that. Because if you use readability all the time as you're working in your story, if you use it to alter the language that you use, you can dull your message and definitely restrict the language that you use. So my suggestion is write the story and then check the readability. And once you get a sense of that readability, as you write, you'll be able to understand if you feel like this sentence is starting to feel really long, and you may want to change it and maybe not. All right. So basically, you want to use readability as a guideline to know how you will maintain clarity for your readers and make your story easy to read. That's the whole goal of understanding the readability of your manuscript. You want to help your readers go through your book without any distractions. They're not looking up words. They're not going back to the beginning of the sentence to try and figure out how it started and what the end of the sentence means. So you just want to avoid those issues with your text. All right, and then the second thing I want to talk today about that helps your readers stay in the story and stay and continue and is your paragraph length. So the advertising world has known for years that text surrounded by white space is easier to read. And it's true in manuscripts as well, and that is why paragraph length makes a difference in your novel. You're breaking up blocks of text into smaller clusters, as it were, and short batches of text are easier to read. So you want to keep your reader's eye flowing down the page, and short paragraphs help your reader keep going down the page. And if you're writing a long description, you can do what Joseph Conrad or Jane Harper do. Break up the long description into shorter paragraphs and then add an emotional tie to the character at the end of the paragraph. So description, 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 and then right at the end. So a way that character is responding to the description. So rather than having one whole page of description, you break it down into shorter pieces, and at the end of each of those shorter paragraphs, you tie it back to the character. You'll keep your reader engaged with the character while still creating an atmospheric setting. And another writer who uses this technique in a different way is Michael Connelly. So he often uses long drives as he goes from the Coastal 101 on the 10 over to the 405 as musing time for Harry Bosch. So he'll describe the traffic and where Harry is, and then Harry will be thinking about the case or something happening in his personal life. And then once again, we're off to a new place in the setting, and then go back to that again. So for you, whether the mist is on the moors or the smog is covering down, blanketing the city, you want to keep your paragraphs short. And if one of your characters is giving a long speech, this can happen. You want to do the same thing. You want to break up the dialogue with a bit of action or description, and that will avoid a large block of text, which is the character's whole speech. And at the same time, they'll give your reader a sense of how others are responding to the character or responding to the speech. So just keep that in mind as well. So this is all about you as a writer and your craft. Crafting sentences that keep readers reading demands clarity, and short paragraphs keep your reader's eye going down the page. When you craft an easy-to-read story, your reader will stay focused on the story, and that's really what you want. So I highly suggest that you take a look at your current manuscript and find out where you are with your readability score, and then just visually take a look at the paragraphs on the page and see if they vary. If you have lots of long paragraphs, you probably want to go and cut them into 2 or maybe even 3 shorter paragraphs, and then tie whatever is going on in those long paragraphs back to your character, and that keeps your reader engaged. Okay, readability, short paragraphs will really help your readers flow through your book and focus on your story. All right. Thank you so much. I hope that helps. It for some people feels very technical, but it's worth it if you really want to keep your readers engaged in your story for the length of your story. And if you're still struggling with your story, Write a Killer Mystery is a course designed to help mystery writers go from their story idea through character development and world building and story planning and story plotting, all the elements it takes to build a story. So even if this is your first book, you have a good idea and you have guidelines for writing you through, getting you from story idea to the end. So once again, the link is in the description below. Thank you so much for being here. And if you found this helpful, please, subscribe and click that little notification bell so you won't miss the next episode of Write a Killer Mystery. Thank you.